This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good. All right, everybody, mostly in person. Hello over here. All right. Oh, it's just to me at this point, but we'll get there. Okay, so we're on page 203, chapter 3, food preparation on Shabbos. So the chunk that we did was in terms of cooking, and that's really where most of it comes in. Or I said that's the concentration of everything, and then we have lots of little side issues going on with our food preparation on Shabbos. So we have squeezing fruit for juice, milking, okay, grinding, snow and ice on Shabbos. We are blessed to live in California, not such an issue. Kneading, pickling, separating trumot and masrot, opening cans and packages. That's a major one that comes up a lot. So we shall begin. Yes. Yes. And Jackie, to her credit, did send me an email to remind me, and it got buried. But I'm pretty sure it is okay. The reason being that hatmana is wrapping. It's like the second wrapping. It's the, putting something into a pot and covering the pot. That's not hatmana. That's cooking. It's wrapping that kli, right? So therefore, wrapping the challah is not an issue because that's a single wrap, right? Wrapping the corn, then I think you would ask, so yeah, would not be an issue. That's more of a single wrap. Hatmana is insulating, right? Insulating. That's what hatmana does. You're wrapping it in a blanket. This past Friday night we just had a soup, right? And so instead of leaving on a burner or a hot plate, right before she lit candles, she took the pot off the fire, wrapped it in a nice blanket, right? Nice towel, left it on the counter, right? Even though it was completely wrapped, it was not wrapped in anything that's adding heat. It's just maintaining the heat over there. So that was okay, right? It's insulating in addition, right? As opposed to a single aluminum foil around a challah or a single aluminum foil around a corn. Okay, thank you for reminding me, Esther. Good. Okay, the prohibition of squeezing, 205. It is prohibited to extract juices from fruits or vegetables on Shabbos, both when preparing food and while eating it. For example, while eating a grapefruit, one must be careful not to intentionally squeeze the juice from it. So whereas with certain other things, we differentiate between in advance or while you're eating, right? But here, right, now, of course, when I'm eating a grapefruit or an orange, if I'm eating a grapefruit, right, well, I'm eating an orange, put it in my mouth, I bite on it, right, that's eating, that's chewing. That's, of course, not an issue. Even a grapefruit, if you slice a grapefruit in half and then do some slicing around there, when you're getting the pieces out, it's going to squirt the people all around you. That's half the fun of eating a grapefruit, right? But that's not an issue because they're not intentionally looking to squeeze it, okay? Moreover, in many cases, forbidden to drink juice that dribbles from a fruit on Shabbos. However, one may drink it when Shabbos is over. Okay, something, and this is not really so relevant to us in our kitchens, right? But let's say I'm storing grapes in order to make wine, and then some of it oozed out on its own, right? So there, since it's something that's designated for drinking, you don't want to drink it even if it oozed out on its own, lest you'll come to actually squeeze. Okay. Now, the exception is the classic lemon onto a fish. Okay, now why? That's classic squeezing out the lemon to get the juice. One may squeeze fruits and vegetables by hand, not with a utensil made for extracting juice, onto a solid food if the juice is immediately absorbed into the food. God bless you there, Ladero. Like squeezing lemon juice onto fish and aids in its preparation. Okay? So if you want to squeeze some lemon juice onto a piece of fish, or onto a salad, right? See that? Onto a salad, okay? That is okay. Why is that okay? Because it starts as a solid and it never became a liquid. I cannot squeeze my lemon juice onto a teaspoon and then use that, right? And then use that, right, onto onto the fish or the salad, because there, when I extracted it, it became a liquid, right? It first pooled as a liquid. I certainly can't can't squeeze it into my tea, because that's going into a liquid. So that's transforming a solid into a liquid. When it goes right from the lemon onto the fish or onto the salad, it never changed into a liquid state, in the air, right? But it went from food to food, and that is allowed. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good point, right? So putting a lemon into it, right? As long as I'm not, with a spoon, I'm not like putting any pressure onto it, I can throw it in there. Yeah, yeah. Okay, because there you're not doing an act of schita, of extracting and squeezing out.
How
Okay,
cut lemon?
I'm sorry, Susie.
Are you allowed to cut the lemon to half?
You're allowed to cut it, yes, but yes, you're allowed to cut it in half and then squeeze it onto, or as Ladero said, putting it into a cup of water or a cup of tea, right? You can't squeeze it in. You want to put the whole slice into. Some people do that with tap water. That it yeah.
But what was behind that you cannot squeeze lemon and make the liquid? It's forbidden, and to the solid food, yes. What was behind that?
Okay, so we can't. The way that this was done in the temple was extracting from a solid to pull its liquid out from it. Okay, that we can't do. That's because that would then bring it into a liquid form. But if it's never being transformed into a liquid form, if it's going right onto a piece of fish or right into a salad, so you never had it as a liquid, right? It was always, it went onto a solid that absorbed it. Therefore, it's not the way it was done in the temple. And that is what we're trying to avoid.
Okay. But I was wondering why they cannot be into a liquid. Why?
That is so in general, when it comes to these laws of Shabbos, when we are doing an act, a creative act, where we are changing the nature of the world around us, so that is the issue. Because the way that we do our belief in God as a creator is through Shabbat. And the way that we do our belief in God as a creator is that God went through these different stages of altering, transforming the world, using his power and ability to transform the world. Came Shabbat, he rested. He stopped transforming the world. So we too on Shabbos, we show our belief in God as a creator by not using our abilities and our powers and our prowess to transform the world.
Okay.
So therefore, we don't want to transform this solid into a liquid. That is the idea
So
of
the
this.
whole piece is solid.
I'm sorry?
So the lemon, the whole piece is solid.
It's
so
a solid. It's considered a solid.
Wait,
Correct.
you make you dripping on the solid food is fine because
Correct. Because then it's solid to solid.
Okay.
We have not made this. We have not engineered this transformation.
Okay.
Okay. And in your case, there, when you're popping it into your drink, you're not doing anything, right? You're putting it in there. Yeah. Gabriella. For later on Shabbos? Why not? Yes, so that was certain things. I don't think that'd be an issue. By borer, by separating. There we had the miyad, biyad, ocha mitoch psolet. Miyad for immediate usage, biyad using your hands or utensils, but not a tool, right? And also the good from the bad. Yeah. Yes, Esther. That's sure. Well, there would not be an issue of schita, right? But you'd have to make sure because you want to do it in a kli shlishi, in that third vessel, because there, if the tea is very hot and it's a kli sheni, a second vessel, then it might be cooking, right? So yeah, but assuming we don't have the issue of cooking, then we would not have the issue of schita, and that one can do if one very much wants to have their lemon in there, right? So like you buy a thing of lemon juice, right? If you want fresh lemon, right? So you have to squeeze it before Shabbos. Yes. Okay. Okay. Squeezing pickled foods. 206. Okay, it is permitted to squeeze the juice from pickled vegetables if one's intention is to improve the vegetables and not to drink the juice. That should be done shortly before one eats the food. I'm not sure. I would imagine the issue over here is that that's not its natural juices that we're squeezing out. We put the juices in, right? Right? But yeah, okay, I'm not so clear on that. But again, I don't think that is something that is so relevant to us. Milking on Shabbos. Okay, this includes, right, 207, right, threshing, right, which was the dash, threshing, which was the av malacha, the primary malacha, which led to squeezing out the juices from a fruit, also would apply to milking cows. Okay? Now, a person who must milk cows on Shabbos, so then there are ways that it can be done, right? Okay, but that's for most of us not living on a farm. I don't think that is an issue. Okay, and obviously for a woman to nurse a child is not an issue whatsoever. And I have to ask Natalie if a woman needs to express. I think she. Okay, but a handheld espresso one can. Okay, grinding. Okay. Grinding food, 208, is prohibited on Shabbos. Crumbling, mashing, or pureeing food are included in the category of grinding. Okay. Now, let's say you want to prepare a banana for a child to eat. Okay. So that's not really considered to be grinding. Right? Grinding is when I'm breaking it down into smaller pieces. Right? They are not breaking it down to smaller pieces. I'm turning it into what is scientifically defined as a mush. That's all I'm doing, right? So there, though, we would do it with a bit of a shinui. Shinoi is a slight change, not doing it in the normal manner. So let's say the normal manner would be with a fork. That's the best way to get a good hold of it, right? And mash it up. So you use a spoon, right? You change it up a little bit. Yes, or the back, right, would also be fine. Yes, you want to step on it with your left foot instead of your right foot. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, spoon or the back of it, or the I'm sorry, the handle. Yeah, but not the prongs of the fork. Whether you're doing it upside, right side up or either way, the prongs we wouldn't use. Yeah. Chopping or cutting vegetables or fruits into very small pieces is also considered grinding, right? That's what we call the Israeli salad, right? Where they chop it into super little small pieces, right? That's also considered grinding, right? Because basically that's what you're doing. You're breaking it down into very small pieces. One should therefore cut such foods into pieces slightly larger than usual to avoid any possibility of transgression. Okay, this also applies to non-edible substance. Soil may not be crumbled, a wood sword for the sawdust. Okay, so again, that's pretty simple for us.
I'm sorry. So if you do that ahead of Shabbat.
Oh, before Shabbos, yeah.
Yeah, but you can't do it
on Shabbos. On Shabbos, yeah. All of these things, right? Correct. Yeah, it shouldn't be in these very fine small pieces. Snow and ice. Okay. One may not chop ice or crush snow on Shabbos to cause it to melt. However, one may put ice cubes into water or other drinks despite the fact that they will melt. Why is that? Why isn't that turning a liquid into a solid? A solid into a liquid? So, it's interesting, right? If you have an ice bucket, right, you wouldn't want to drink that ice water that accumulated on the bottom of the bucket, at least not when the guests are watching now, right? Right? You wouldn't want to drink the water that accumulated on the bottom over there, okay? Because that is a solid that turned into a liquid, right? And it's discernible. But over here, when you're putting the ice cube into your drink, or with little kids putting the ice cube into the hot soup, right, to cool it off a little bit for the kids, right? So there, the water that has melted down from that is never in its own, right, discernible state. Hmm? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Yes. Ice cream melted, and now what do you want to do? No. No. See, look, you wouldn't want to take an ice cream cone or a popsicle, put it into a cup, have it melt, and turn into a liquid and drink it. That would be like the ice, right, in the bucket. But eating your ice cream and some of it melts as you're eating it, right? So then that's not a problem, and you're getting it to the last drop, right? Go to the last drop. Yeah, yeah. But like I said, you wouldn't put it in the cup in order to have it melt down, right? Right. Correct. Okay, one may break ice to gain access to the water under it. Okay, You can break the ice to gain access to the water under it. Right? There were times when women going to the mikvah, they had to chop a hole in the ice, right, to get into that lake or whatever for the mikvah. Right? Yes, that was quite different than the beautiful Irvine community mikvah, our spa-like mikvah that we have over here. Though there was one time that Natalie and I were up in the country. She was running her camp, and she needed to go to the mikvah. And at one of the nearby camps, it was a Hasidic camp, so they actually had a mikvah there that the woman could use at night, but the heating system was broken, and she was so frozen after just going into that. And she said she gained an appreciation for what it was like for those women in Europe who had to who had to crack the ice and go in over there. Yeah, it was literally ice cold. Okay. The prohibition of mixing, kneading, page 210. Mixing, kneading, right? This is all part of that process of making the dough, making the bread, right? That was the lechem apanim, the faced bread that was part of the service in the temple. Mixing, kneading is prohibited on Shabbos. This malacha includes mixing a food with a drink or a solid with a liquid so that one substance is formed. Interesting. So that's what I was just thinking now. So cereal, it doesn't become one substance. Hot cereal, like the oatmeal, right? So that we discussed that in a kli shlishi, right? I'm familiar with the kli shlishi, right? The kli shlishi is the third vessel. So I think you were away for a week or two. The first pot on the fire is called the kli rishon, the first vessel. You take from that into another vessel, that becomes the kli sheni. And then you put into a third vessel, that's the kli shlishi. So we discussed oatmeal in a kli shlishi. It's not going to be a problem of bishul, but you would need to make it pretty loose. So on the watery side, so that it does not become an issue of kneading. Otherwise, it's very much like water into flour, and it becomes this dough. It is prohibited to knead water with flour, water with dust or cement, and honey or oil with various foods. If a liquid with solid particles combine into a mixture by themselves, one may, even without kneading or mixing it, one may not pour one into the other. Okay? Yeah. Well, so that would be, let's say, the oatmeal, right? In other words, when you pour it in over there, right, it's going to, on its own, basically, right? So that's why you need to keep it pretty loose. So you notice what he's saying over here, it's not just the issue of kneading it, the action that you're doing to create this one substance, right? But it is combining these two, a liquid and a solid, and thereby forming it, transforming it into one substance. Okay. Soft mixture, 211. One may not make a mixture on Shabbos, whether the mixture is soft or hard. Okay. What's sriracha, sorry? Hot sauce. That was liquid and liquid. Yes. Right? So a soft mixture is defined as a fluid mixture which can be poured from one vessel to another. Okay? I would still think, maybe I'm wrong, but I still think as long as it's a watery oatmeal, right? So that's not considered, right, like one substance, right? Okay. There are situations where it's permitted to form a soft mixture on Shabbos if one changes the way the mixture is formed. Okay. Mixing the order. Okay. Yeah. Soft mixer, changing the way, mixing with a finger. That's interesting. So they show over here some shoko, right? On the bottom picture over there. Some shoko, right? Adding chocolate powder to milk, right? To make chocolate milk. From adding chocolate syrup, that's not going to be an issue. Why is that not an issue? Liquid, liquid. But when I'm adding the powder, right? So that would even though it's a full soft liquid that's pouring, right? Well, let's say you want to make like a lemonade mix using powder, or iced tea mix using powder. Okay, so when so all right, Esther asked, why is that not considered? There's another issue of dyeing things on Shabbos. So when it comes to food, right, I'm not looking to color the food. I'm making food over here, right, through a non-bishul, a non-cooking manner, right? So that's not going to be an issue, right, of dyeing. Okay, dyeing is with wool, is with materials, not with food. But interesting. Let me look into this more, right? But it seemed that if you are going to be making chocolate milk, right, with using powder or adding a powdered lemonade or iced tea mix to water, then it should be shaken in a different manner, stirred, right, combined. Yeah, but we don't. There's not a problem with instant coffee. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they're bringing up over here. Let me see if they're being somewhat overly strict here. Okay, let me look into this further. Right, this instant coffee that we know is not going to be an issue. Right, we you know that's an example that's often discussed. That's not going to be a problem because it's either in your klishlishi or the freeze dried, I think is already cooked, or yeah, or klishlishi. Okay. 212, prohibition of pickling, right? We can't soak vegetables in vinegar or brine on Shabbos to pickle them. Okay, one may not salt vegetables which are customly pickled, onions, radishes, cucumbers. However, if immediately after salting the vegetables, one adds oil or sour to them, they may be salted. One may also salt each individual piece of vegetable just before one eats it. Okay, so that is almost considered like a, okay, so that goes into the malacha of tanning, right, of processing the hide, which is part of which Seder, my friends? Part of which order was that? We had the issue with the hide? Writing, good, right? Because the writing was done on parchment. Okay? Trumot and Masrot on Shabbos, 213. Okay, so for us living here outside of Israel, and so Truma and Maser are the tithes that are taken off of produce that is grown in Israel, and that is taken off and separated, right, for the Kohanim, for the Leviim, right? How we actually do it nowadays is a little more complicated. But that all applies in Israel, or it applies with fruits that come here from Israel. So one needs to be careful, because sometimes they, oh great, let me support Israel. I'm going to buy. Costco has these great Jaffa. Right? It ends up becoming very complicated, right? So as big a fan and promoter as I am of Israel, when it comes to Israeli produce, one needs to be very careful because there are many halachot, that many Jewish laws that are added on and become part of that. So, right, the issue of separating, right, these things on Shabbos, it's like you're rendering, it's like you're turning it into a vessel, right? You're turning it into, you're taking something that was not usable prior and now is becoming usable. But again, for us over here, it is not so relevant. 214 is very relevant. Opening cans, bottles, and other food wrappings. Right? What is the issue over here? Which of the malachot are we doing by doing this? Right? So if you remember, we had 11 steps of the cooking, making bread. We had 13 steps of the sewing, right? That brought us to 24. We had 9 steps of writing, brought us to 33. Then we had a couple of doubles. What were our doubles? Good. Tying, untying, and building and deconstructing. Right? Right? So, yeah, there was burn. Yeah. Wait, we're getting confused though, because we have too many now. Right? Right? We have too many now. Right? So what did we have? Right? Yeah, 11, yeah. But yeah, 1 second. There we go. So we had 11 of the baking. When it came to the sewing, and tying and untying was included in sewing. Okay, that was a 24. We had 9 of the starting with trapping that led to the writing. Okay, then we had building and demolishing, lighting a fire, putting out a fire. It was a 37. Then we had moving from one domain to another, right? And then we had the final hammer blow, right? Which completed an object, turned something into a vessel. That is the issue at hand that we need to be careful with when it comes to opening up different containers, cans, bottles, and other food wrappings. You don't want to be creating a kli. A kli is a vessel. We don't want to be creating a kli. When opening bags, cans, or food wrappings on Shabbos, one must be careful of many details. Bags and cans should be opened in such a way that they do not become receptacles. You don't want to turn it into a kli, turn it into a vessel. Okay? So, in other words, like we discussed, a can of tuna fish, right? A can of tuna fish. So there when you open a can, you're literally you're cutting through that metal, cutting out the top. And now what have you got? You've got yourself a receptacle, something that can be used to hold things, food or other items in it. So we discussed what is the way that one should do it instead. Flip it over and just puncture the bottom. And that way, when you do open it up, you don't have yourself a vessel, a receptacle. So probably. Now, let's say the old cans of soda. I haven't had a can of soda in a while, but right, it used to be that you'd pull off thing, or let's say the orange juice or the milk, which had that little plastic, right? So that's not a problem. There, I'm not making it into a kli. It was a kli, and they put that cover on top, right? because I'm not cutting through to actually make a vessel, right? Correct. This is the same way that opening up a bottle of freeze dry. It's freeze dried though. It's vacuum packed, right? Pickles or something. Is that a problem? Don't get nervous. No, it's not a problem. Why is it not a problem? It was two separate items. That when we started off, it was a glass jar, and it was a lid, right? Yeah. Now, also keep in mind that in order for it to be considered a vessel, it needs to be something that is somewhat functional. Okay, right? Like the little can of soda, it's hardly functional, right? Or even the thing of juice or milk, it's hardly you're not going to now start to reuse that as a kli, right? Now, let's see what he says over here. Bags and cans, receptacle. A hole may not be made in a can or a box, which permits the contents to be poured out. Okay. Bottles with unopened screw-on caps may not be opened on Shabbos, and this will cause a metal ring to be torn off the bottle top. Why do I care if a ring is being torn off? So I'm not sure where he's going with this. I'll tell you the halacha as we keep it here in the shul. Okay, there is and this is based on the Shmir Shabbos Hilchasa. There's a difference between opening up a soda bottle plastic cap and a wine bottle metal cap. Okay, regardless of the ring being stuck on the bottom or not. Okay, and this is the differentiation that we make. The plastic bottle cap for a bottle of soda, that is produced as a bottle cap. It's made in a way that it gets screwed on, and then in order to screw it off, you have to break off that ring. But it was a bottle cap before it came to you, and once you take it off, it is a bottle. As opposed to the metal cap that is on a bottle of wine. That starts off as a disc. And then when it goes onto the bottle, right, there's a machine that goes, right, and turns it into this unit, right? And therefore, when you take it off, that's when you are turning it into a cap. Okay? So in those situations, if you have a bottle of wine with a metal cap and you want to have it on Shabbos and you did not remember to open it up before Shabbos, is a very, very easy way to take care of that problem. What would that be? Yeah, similar to the can of tuna fish, right? Puncture the cover, puncture the cover, puncture the cap. And that way, when you take it off, right, then you might want to have a couple of extra caps in your silverware drawer. And that way, when you puncture that cap, especially if it is a carbonated wine, right, so you want to be able to close it afterwards and take one of the caps that you have that you saved from last time in your drawer and use it to cover. Okay. Packages that are knotted closed may not be untied. Okay, we'll come to tying and untying later on. Okay, but let's say you've got a nice box of cookies from the bakery, and how do they do it? And it's tied closed, right? So how do you get at those cookies? Okay, you can rip open the box if you're that hungry, Gabriella, right? First of all, right, without too much dexterity, you can just remove that rope and get it all to one side and take it off. But if you're having problems doing that, you can cut the rope rather than untie. It depends what you're using it for. right? In other words, we use scissors to cut grapes, to cut, clumps of grapes from the things, right? Over there, I'm not making a kli, and I'm doing a destructive act in order to get at my food, right? The same way that I could tear open a plastic wrapping around a thing of plates or a thing of food, right? I can also do that. Okay, we'll come to that soon. It is best to open cans, food wrappings, bottles before Shabbos, right? And that way things become a lot easier, right? You avoid any of the issues. Yes. No problem. Correct. Okay, taking precautions not to erase letters on page 215. Wrappers and lids of boxes which bear written symbols, drawings, or letters may not be torn or opened. Do you have Tom also? Okay, yeah, it's a typo. Yeah, must not be torn or opened if this will tear the writing. Okay, we'll see more details later on. Okay, so that is why I give out to the kids on Shabbat to give out those lollipops as opposed to giving out Laffy Taffies. Laffy Taffies are almost impossible to open without tearing letters and writing. There's a lot of little letters all over the place over there. Okay? Right? So writing and erasing are one of the malachot on Shabbos. Similarly, raised letters or pictures of those depressed into lids or packages may not be crushed or defaced. Sometimes eggshells, salamis, oranges are imprinted with letters or numbers. One should be careful not to cut the symbols. Okay? Now, one of these things that come up often is on cakes, right? Birthday cakes, right? So that on Shabbos becomes a bit problematic, right? So what most of the kosher bakeries now do is they'll write "Happy Birthday, Tom," right? They'll write that on a piece of chocolate or something like that, which you lift off, and that way, right? It doesn't become an issue, right? Cutting between the letters is not so much of an issue. It's destroying, right, the letters. Okay? So, yeah. Okay, so that one needs to be careful with these different boxes. Now, sometimes you have food that it itself has, well, sometimes you might have a cupcake with some lettering on it. So when you bite into it, you're going to be ruining the lettering. That's not a problem, because that's your eating. Okay? Also, right, some biscuits will have, or it'll have enraised print on it. Osam will say on it, whatever, right? That's also not an issue, because are you doing that as you are eating? Okay? The problem is cutting things in preparation for that. Okay? Because that brings us into this. It's interesting. They say see chapter 3 for more details. Now, this was very confused. Yeah, that's what I thought we were. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I have to ask Tom to explain that one to us. I'm not sure. Okay. But again, in the normal course of eating, it's not a problem. It's in the cutting or the opening up the bags, the containers, that will be that would be an issue. We mentioned last time also, let's say you have a new box of cereal, right? So you'd want to open that up before, right, before Shabbos. Otherwise, you pull that nice perforated thing and presto, you have like a nice little box that opens and closes and tucks its way in over there, right? That would be akin to making a vessel of sorts, and we would not want to do that on Shabbos. No, that you don't need to do. Yeah. Well, what some families do is they'll get like a Tupperware sort of thing and just pour the cereal into that, and that way we're good to go. Have you cracked the code, Esther?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, 266. Thank you, Esther. Okay, so let's take a look at that, then we'll call it a day. Good. Thank you very much, Esther. Okay, erasing 266. Erasing and breaking letters on food. Erasing any kind. Actually, I'm just going to borrow your pen for a second. Right, I would just suggest in your books, why don't you write, just say, cross out 3. It's chapter 8, page 266. Okay, thank you, Daryl. Yeah. Erasing and breaking letters on food. Erasing any kind of writings prohibited on Shabbos. Okay. If wax, grease, or a similar substance dripped on written letters, one may not scrape it off on Shabbos. Okay. Because I guess that will also somebody erase some of the letters. Okay. One may not break or cut by hand or instrument the edible letters and words on cakes or other foods. Some authorities also edit pictures. Okay. The Mishnah Brura, however, permits cutting of food into which letters were raised or pressed, as long as the letters are not from another substance. Okay. So not only can you chop on that osam biscuit that has the raised letters that says osam on it, I could also cut it if I would so desire. Why is that? Because writing is one substance on another substance. That is what writing is. So therefore, erasing will be an issue when it is one substance on another substance. Therefore, the last part of here, the Mishnah, however, permits cutting of food onto which letters were raised and or pressed, as long as the letters are not from another substance. The Chazon Ish rules stringently in this case and prohibits this. And I would say the approach is that of the Mishnah Brura, that's written by the Chafetz Chaim, right? And therefore, right, if it's just raised, right, like he has over there, right, in the pictures over there, right? So erasing is a problem. Letters on a cake which are made from different ingredients is a problem. Letters imprinted on a food is okay. Removing wax from letters, I'm not sure exactly what the issue. Okay, well, but anyhow, we wouldn't be doing that on Shabbos, so we're pretty safe. Yes.
About if there was like fogged up.
Yes, see, even writing in fog or drawing a picture on condensation on a window, that even if it's not lasting writing something in some sand or something like that, even if it's not permitted. Not permitted. Yes. 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 Yeah. Interesting. Right? So perhaps we're going to differentiate between the writing and erasing in such a case. Perhaps, I'm not sure. But we say even if it's not shel kayama, even if it's not going to be lasting, it will not be a Torah prohibition, but rabbinically we wouldn't do that. Yeah. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here. I think next week we're going to interrupt Shabbos for a little bit to go into the 3 weeks. That's starting already, I believe, a week from Sunday. Yeah. Okay, so next class will be an introduction to that. Yes, Susie. You're muted, Susie. Susie, you're muted.
No, it's okay. I just
Okay.
was.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Good night. Susie and Simone. Good night. But Daryl, when are you starting up your Monday? I didn't see an email. Did an email go out with all information? Okay, so just a reminder, I don't recall seeing one, so we want to get the word out there. Okay? Yeah. And you're spreading the word to your other right, good. Okay. Good. Okay. Did you reach out to Nathan?